Yeah. Need to go ahead and move on.
I'm sorry.
I think Bob is still in his sentencing.
Oh, right. Okay. All right.
And the first witness is his.
Okay.
Sarah. Last one, there's no other thing on that road. I was going to fix it.
Okay, that's a bummer. As soon as Mr. Langman gets here, we'll start. I'm trying to. You didn't get it yet. The only one that can give it to you. All rise. For his scan and session.
Please be seated.
Start. Give me exhibits 47.
47 through 61.
Mr. Langman is in, oh, I'm sorry.
Is he taking care of the next witness?
He is.
He is?
Yeah, that's why we're.
You got anything else you can plug in?
We're not on, but no, but I've going to remind him not to set sentencings during trials. No, not logically. So I've been down at Department 1 and I found one of my colleagues to fill in for him to do the paperwork to see if that will assist. So, Judge Apple was in the final stages when I just came in.
So I wanted to touch on, before I bring the jury up, exhibits 41 through 47 through 61. The defense had raised an objection not to their authenticity, but rather to their admissibility as direct evidence or for purposes of illustration. The only exhibit that, in looking at these, I didn't have a chance to look at it before I ruled, would be Exhibit 47, which is basically what the goals, stated goals are in examining these particular MRI images. That would be the only exhibit in my mind that would be generally for illustrative purposes only. However, given the nature of what is stated in there, setting forth essentially the same testimony that the witness testified to about the 2 or 3 different times he made the examinations, I'm still satisfied, although it falls within the illustrative purposes intent, it's still direct evidence of the testimony, and so I'm going to maintain my ruling for the admissibility of the 47%.
Thanks, Judge. And in fairness, I actually had meant to just eliminate the word goals if you want to substitute, if you wanted me to substitute one without that single word, but I'm happy to do that.
Exhibit 47 has the word goals on it.
If that means, if that word is particularly, but other than that.
It's defense opinion that it should all be for illustrative purposes, and so however the court rules, and I mean, so
Beyond Exhibit 47,
beyond,
48.
I believe because the hours are in there, that brings it into the category of being for illustrative purposes, not direct testimony. There have been things added to that, so I think it falls into that camp.
Okay, so record's clear.
I will go get.
Are there any other matters we can deal with prior to you walking out of the courtroom and leaving me with no prosecutors?
Hopefully, going to go home and just pull him out of it. I wish I did.
We will be in recess then.
All right.
All I have is one that was like the copy that said, here, take this one though, and I'll bring you the other green one later.
Oh, so that must be.
So I don't know if that's what he.
That's weird because I thought. So where is it? Where's that?
Huh? I assumed it was this one because it was a copy.
Yeah. So maybe, but I'm handing it. And not like the right way for you to read this.
Well,
I do know.
We're all set.
So, just the shred box.
usually make sure it's straight, right?
Yes. Is that
Um,
okay with it now?
All right, anything before we...
You're good. Good thing.
All right.
Thank you. You may be seated. You ready for the hearing?
Yes.
Please be seated.
Everything good? Yeah. Ready to go? Get to work. Next witness, please.
State called Ed Hardesty to the stand.
Before you sit down, will you raise your hand? You solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. See the there.
Afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
After you get settled, if you could state your name, spelling your first and your last for the record, please.
Edwin E. Hardesty, E-D-W-I-N, H-A-R-D-E-S-T-Y.
And sir, I see you're wearing a uniform. How are you currently employed?
Deputy Fire Marshal for Snohomish County Fire Marshal's Office.
And how long have you been doing that?
Currently been employed with them for the past almost 3 years now. Venture to say maybe 50-50.
Okay. You used the term process of elimination earlier.
Correct.
What does that mean in terms of your job?
Well, we are tasked with trying to determine what the ignition source and what the fuel or the first item ignited. And so the process of elimination is eliminating those ignition sources that aren't the cause of the fire. So we try to eliminate and work our way into the area of origin and then start eliminating all those items that are within that area of origin and come up with a competent ignition source to start the fire.
You mentioned using a systematic approach to your investigation, correct?
That's correct.
So do you try and eliminate everything except for arson?
Well, it's not that simple. What the purpose of the fire investigation is to determine what the cause of the fire is. The process to do that is to eliminate eliminate the causes, any of the causes inside the area of origin. If there are accidental causes inside the area of origin and you find those, then you found your cause in that. Typically, if there are no accidental causes in the area of origin, it's possible that the fire is an incendiary fire or intentionally set.
There are firefighters that go into the fires and smell things, feel things, and do things, correct?
Correct.
In forming your opinion, in conducting your investigation, do you speak to those firefighters?
I do.
And do you rely on their opinions of what they tell you?
I do.
And do you try and gather other reports in order to conclude your investigation?
I do.
And what types of information do you obtain?
Police reports, property reports, any type of, sometimes insurance reports, any code violations, any history of code violations, things of that nature.
Did you do that in this case?
I did.
Okay. And did you gather any documents, for instance, relating to an insurance claim filed by the defendant in this case?
Yes, I did.
And related to this fire?
Related to this fire, that's correct.
How did you first become involved in this case on November 16th?
Well, I was dispatched by my dispatch agency. Lynnwood Fire Department responded to the scene and they requested my assistance.
And what was going on when you arrived at the home?
They were in the overhaul stages of the fire, putting out spot fires. Fire department was there, police department was there, and incident command was there.
And what do you mean by overhaul stages?
Overhaul is when firefighters extinguish the fire, and then they enter the structure or outside the structure, in this case inside, to extinguish any small fires that are burning within inside of the house or structure, and make sure that everything is extinguished. So they'll start.
Did you enter the home that night?
I did not.
And why was that?
At the time, the information that I received was that there was a possible criminal act that had taken place there. And it was, and for that purpose, that's why I didn't enter. That's why I didn't enter.
Were you aware or cognizant of the fact that there was possibly a police investigation going on?
I was. So when I arrived at the scene, first thing that I did was contact the incident commander, which was Assistant Chief Todd Gates. And that's typically what I do when I arrive at a scene. The incident commander has control of the scene and knows what's going on with his firefighters in extinguishing the fires. He also knows if there's any witnesses or any unusual things that I should be aware of to conduct my investigation. Chief Gates advised me that upon their arrival at the scene, fire and smoke was observed on the north side of the structure. There was a male victim found outside in the front yard, and there was also a unconscious female victim found inside the garage with lacerations to her head and burns to her upper body.
In addition to gathering that information, how was your first night there on November 16th spent? What did you do?
Basically, I was there to see if Lynnwood Fire Department needed my assistance. We are called in as a county fire marshal. We have no authority within the jurisdiction of the city limits. That's up to the fire department. We do have an interlocal agreement that we use between the City of Lynnwood Fire Department and our office to allow us to conduct investigations within their jurisdiction. So that was the purpose for me being called there. Sometimes some of the smaller departments, their investigators are limited in their abilities for the investigations and haven't seen as many fires as our office has. And so we were invited in for our expertise and to help with the fire.
So, as far as that night, were you just talking to people, finding out general information?
So generally, I was trying to determine from Chief Gates whether he needed our assistance. He wasn't sure at that time because the police department was involved. When I was done talking with Chief Gates, he directed me to Detective Brian Jorgensen, who was the lead investigator from the police department. I spoke with him, gathered the same information basically from what Chief Gates told me. Told him I was there to assist him if he needed my assistance. I told him we could walk the exterior of the structure just to see what we could see, if we can determine where or how possibly the fire had started. And so my basic, what I actually did was Detective Jorgensen and I walked the exterior of the structure based on the fire patterns I saw outside of the structure. It appeared that the fire originated inside in the north center, what I call the diamond.
And what was it about what you saw on the outside that led you to that conclusion?
That the fire originated inside?
Yes, sir.
Looking at the burn patterns, you can see ventilation patterns from the fire venting out from interior to the exterior. That's basically my determination on that. It was just a preliminary assessment at that time.
Council, let me interrupt.
Yes, sir.
Folks, I need to take just a moment. I need you to report back to the jury for a moment.
All rise.
I noticed that a particular juror was fading. I don't know if you noticed that or not.
I did not, but I'm grateful for you having done that.
We're going to inquire whether he needs any attention or not, all right?
Okay.
Please be seated.
Number
13.
13.
You put my jurors to sleep. Good head, No, you. But there's no issues. So apparently there are no issues in regards to jurors or changes. How many cards pretty much?
I can
So we'll just keep an eye on the jurors, and if necessary, I'll just interrupt and take a stretch, okay? I just wanted to make sure, though, that that gentleman was all right. So let's bring the jury out. Door needs to be fixed.
All right.
All right, please be seated. So folks, I sent you out briefly just to see if I could get some blood moving. You guys aren't professionals doing this. I've expended a great deal of time and energy being able to drink water and sit patiently for hours on end and to listen to attorneys do online. Not that any attorneys are drugging on here. If you feel the need, you need to stretch, just let me know. If you don't be the least bit worried about raising your hand and saying, can I have a break for a moment, okay? Yeah, I'd rather you be attentive and following the testimony rather than worrying about what's going on, okay? You with me? Let's continue.
Try to be a little more dynamic. Was the house that you were at on the 16th stable to enter at the time you were there?
Could you repeat that?
You talked about why you didn't want to enter because of the police investigation. I understand that. Was the house stable, though, to enter?
Part of the information I received from Chief Gates was that during the course of the fire, there was some structural instability in the north center, what I call the dining room, which allowed us not to go inside the house at the time.
I assume you're a little worried that the house is going to fall in on you.
That's correct.
Are there measures that you take in order to try and make the house stable?
Well, we try to stabilize the house, and that's what we did the next day.
And how does that occur?
We had a, you want me to start from the next day?
Please, are we talking about the 17th?
Correct.
Okay, go ahead.
So there was no entry into the house on the evening of the 16th. The structure was secured with the police department there. My discussion at that time with Detective Jorgensen was that we needed to secure the structure and to stabilize it in order to make entry. At that point, he was also informed me that he was going to, because of the circumstances surrounding the victim in the garage, that he was going to apply for a search warrant. And then the next day, on the 17th, let me back up. Prior to leaving the 16th, after inspecting the exterior of the building with Detective Jorgensen, I talked to Chief Gates again and asked him if he needed my assistance. At that time, he said he wasn't sure that he needed my assistance to continue any further. And I then explained to him that he could notify us if we did. On the 17th, the Fire Marshal Mike McCrary received a phone call from Chief Gates asking him for assistance with the fire. Fire Marshal McCrary came in and spoke with me, and then I contacted Chief Gates. There was a meeting at the Lynnwood Planning Development office, which houses the Fire Marshal office, to talk with the building official, Detective Jorgensen, the two inspectors from Lynnwood that were going to assist in the fire investigation, and Chief Gates, and we were developing a plan of how we were going to enter the structure. At that time, I also informed Chief Gates that based on our interlocal agreement, I had authority to assist them. We agreed to that. And then the plan was to have the building inspector inspect the structure in order for us to determine how to stabilize it and what needed to be done at that time.
And what did need to be done to the house in order to stabilize it?
So the building official agreed that we could build a portable wooden structure that would stand taller than us as we were excavating the interior of the house in the room of origin. That way it was a movable structure with a platform on top that would, if anything were to fall from the ceiling while we're investigating, it would protect us and keep us safe. And we could move the platform around as we were conducting our investigation.
And that was sufficient to allow you to enter the residence?
That's correct.
And who did you have with you?
After the meeting, I called Deputy Fire Marshal Mike Makla, who was a Deputy Fire Marshal at our office at the time. The investigative team was myself, Deputy Fire Marshal Mike Makla, Detective Brian Jorgensen, Inspector Jerry Job, and Inspector Brian Youngman were the team that was going to go in and do the overhaul.
And when you're talking about inspectors, are these the building inspectors you were talking about?
These two inspectors were fire inspectors, and they are also investigators for the city of Lynnwood. And then the third subject that entered the building was the building official himself.
Okay. And you talked again about overhauling. In terms of this, what are you speaking about?
So overhauling or excavating the scene. So in order to find the area of origin and determine what caused the fire, one of the processes is to remove or dig through the structure, because there's a lot of fall down, things that are burned, things that are moved, things that have dropped down.
And what kind of evaluation of the home were you able to do at this time?
At that time, we decided, the building official gave us the okay to build that platform. During that time, Inspector Job and Youngman were in charge of arranging for the construction of the platform. Deputy Fire Marshal Makla and Detective Jorgensen re-entered the residence with the building official, and so that he can explain a little bit more what his concerns were. And then once we determined what his concerns were and the process, myself and Deputy Makala entered the structure. Just prior to entering that, one of the things that we do is establish a wash station, which consists of a couple of tubs full of soap and clean water, and that eliminates anything being tracked into the building should anything be outside, and you don't want that inside the structure.
And so, are you looking for things like burn patterns when you're in the house at this time?
That's correct. So again, with burn patterns, trying to determine the movement of the fire, the least amount of damage with inside the structure, and then working our way to the most amount of damage.
What are burn patterns?
Burn patterns are indicators that the fire leaves as it moves throughout the structure. The walls, the paint on the walls, the paper on the gypsum board leave certain type of burn patterns. Plastic items melt a certain direction. Wood chars a certain direction in the travel of the fire. And so those are the kind of things that we're looking for.
What do you mean in the travel of the fire?
So as a fire moves, as an example, you have a plastic container to your left. Fire starts on the right. As the fire propagates or moves forward towards that, the right side of the plastic container will melt as the fire travels towards that. And those are similar when wood chars, anything that burns like that.
So can burn patterns tell you directionality of the fire?
That's correct.
And did you notice burn patterns when you were in the house at this time?
Oh, I did.
Okay, and what did they tell you?
So when discussing the burn patterns and things like that, Detective Makala and I, we moved from the least amount of damage to the most amount of damage and concluded that the fire originated in the north center, what I call the dining room, on the main floor.
You previously testified that when you walked around outside, that's where you thought the fire had originated from. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Did anything of your investigation on the inside of the home dispel that opinion?
No.
Okay. Was that opinion confirmed for you?
That was my opinion.
Okay. Now, did you bring any kind of equipment with you when you went inside the residence?
Fire investigator tools consist of a number of things: cameras, shovels, rakes, gloves, and on occasion we have an instrument that we use to detect accelerants within the house. If we have some suspicion or some suspected ignitable liquid is used, then we'll use that instrument to give us as a tool to determine if there's anything in ignitable liquid inside the house.
At the time when you were investigating, did you have a suspicion that ignitable liquids could have been used?
Well, the information I originally received on November 16th from Chief Gates indicated that as the female victim, Brenda Welsh, later known to be Brenda Welsh, was transported to the hospital, paramedics noticed and smelled obvious odor of gasoline on her clothing.
And so is that why you brought this piece of equipment with you?
That's correct.
And what is this piece of equipment?
The brand name it's called the Grace Hydrocarbon Detector, and it's really basically an accelerant detector. So it'll determine whether there's any type of ignitable liquids, gasoline, paint thinners, natural gas, propane, things of that nature.
And did you use it on the inside of the house?
I did.
And what were the results?
I used that device inside the north dining room, and the results at that time were negative.
And based on your experience of using this item, does that mean positively that no ignitable liquids were used?
No, that doesn't mean that. Based on the amount of fire damage that was located in that room, it would not be unusual for the ignitable liquid to be consumed during the fire.
And if they were consumed, would your hydrocarbon detector act the way it did that day?
Yes, it would.
Were you still looking for accidental causes of fire at the time?
Well, we were, yes.
And were you able to locate any during the course of your investigation?
No, and the room that I determined to be the area of origin, which was the north center dining room, that room contained pretty much nothing. It was void of any furniture. Once we dug out the floor and removed the debris from there, there really wasn't a fuel load that would indicate to me that could start the fire inside that room. So then we began looking at next would be the branch circuits or the electrical in the walls and the ceiling. And based on what I observed there was very limited electrical branch circuits in that room. The wall circuits appeared to be roughed in with no outlets, and there weren't any branch circuits that I could find that ran in the ceiling that would suggest that there was a light fixture in there.
To be clear, when you're talking about there was very little in the room, do you mean because it burned up, or are you speaking differently?
I'm speaking differently. Typically a house would have your furniture in each of the rooms. This particular one appeared to be somewhat under construction, but had no furniture, no household items, no appliances, nothing that I could see.
Could you tell whether or not the walls and things of that were finished?
So closer examination of the walls appeared that the east wall was covered with plywood. There was no gypsum board for the ceiling or the walls. Gypsum board is typically used in the house for fire protection. In this case, there was none. And I could not determine for certain that there was a covering on the ceiling because of the amount of fire damage to the ceiling joists.
In the course of your investigation, speaking of ceiling joists, had any of the joists, either upstairs or downstairs, any of the rafters or beams or anything, had any of them fallen?
No.
When you're speaking of plywood being on the walls, talking to us about how fire starts, could I just take a match or a lighter or something and hold it up against a piece of plywood and get it to ignite?
It would be very difficult.
Why is that?
Because of the density of the plywood. In order for plywood that's vertically standing, you would have to have a length of time to apply that heat or open flame in order for that to ignite. And then for it to continue to propagate, you would have to continue applying that heat or flame in order for it to begin propagating on its own.
And to be clear, we're speaking about the room where you determined the fire started.
Correct.
Okay. Did you indicated that on your, one of the tools you brought with you was a camera?
Correct.
Did you take pictures?
I did.
Was this on the 18th?
This was on the 18th.
Okay. And you have in front of you states exhibits number 62 to 170. Have you previously had an opportunity to look at those?
I have.
To be clear, those are not all the pictures you took, correct?
No, they're not.
Okay. But are those pictures that you took?
These are pictures that I did take.
And are they a true and accurate depiction of the house as you were doing your investigation on November 18th?
They are.
Your Honor, the state would move to admit state's exhibits number 62 through 170.
No objection.
62 through 170 will be admitted.
Now, what we're looking at here on state's exhibit, and I'm going to have to try and keep track of this, state's exhibit 62, this actually says November 19th, but what is this picture of, sir?
I use this to document the date and time and the case numbers for my fires that I investigated.
So this is something you drew up later?
This particular one was taken on the 19th.
Going to state's exhibit number 63, what are we looking at?
We're looking at the south side of the residential structure with the front door, front windows boarded up.
And what is the purpose of the boarding up, and when did that occur?
That occurred on the evening of the 17th when we concluded our initial fire examination. And that is used to secure the property so nobody else can get in there because we weren't finished with our investigation.
And I'm going to have you flip through that stack with me because I might need to ask you what exhibit I'm on. We're going to go to state's exhibit number 64 here. And what are we looking at?
This would be the attached garage on the west side of the structure. You're looking at the south side of it.
Okay. And is what I'm pointing at here the front door of this residence?
That's correct.
To your knowledge, had these cars been moved or altered in any way prior to your arrival?
No, they were in that position.
And were they in that position on the 16th when you came to the fire?
They were.
Going to state's exhibit number 65.
Now, this just depicts that the door that was used to secure the front entrance was still secure with padlock.
And you're trying your best to keep a secure scene, is that correct?
That's correct.
State's exhibit number 66.
This is the west side of the structure. What I'm trying to depict here is the location of the electric meter and the gas meter to the structure.
Are the electric meter and the gas meter things that you're going to look for to try and determine whether or not it's an accidental fire?
They are.
And did you examine these?
I did examine them.
State's exhibit number 67.
And this is a close-up of the electric meter, and you can note that there is no fire damage around the meter, and it was operational at the time of the fire.
So can you eliminate this as a cause of the fire?
And based on what I'm seeing here, I can eliminate it as the cause of the fire.
State's exhibit, you need to flip with me.
I'm sorry.
68.
This would be 68.
Great. What are we looking at here?
This is the natural gas meter on the west side of the property.
Okay. And did you see any sort of damage to it whatsoever?
There's no fire damage there, so I eliminated that as a possible cause of the fire.
State's exhibit number 69. Where are we on the house now?
We are on the north side, and we're looking south at the west end of the north side.
West end of the north.
Does that make sense?
No.
We're on the north side of the house.
Okay.
We're facing south on the west side.
Are we in the backyard, Mr.
We're in the backyard.
Great. Is this the, I know the answer to this, but is this the dining room you're speaking of that is where the fire started? Or is it over here?
No. Those boards are covering two windows that lead into a family room.
Okay. Going to state's exhibit number
70.
70, thank you.
Again, we're in the backyard looking at the north side of the house. The boards up above on the second story are covering...
You have a laser pointer.
I'm sorry.
That's fine.
These two boards are covering the windows to the upstairs, what I call the upstairs family room. This is covering a hole that the fire department caused during suppression efforts when they were fighting the fire. And this board here covers the northeast upstairs bedroom. These boards are covering the entrance to the north center dining room.
is the north center dining room where you determined origin of fire was?
That's correct.
I'm noticing, or rather, sorry, that was poorly phrased. Are there burn patterns here that told you anything depicted here?
These are the burn patterns I'm talking about. These are ventilation patterns extending out from the inside of the house and then extending vertically up into the soffit.
And what are ventilation patterns?
These, with the fire, how can I explain that? They're burn patterns caused by ventilation of the fire venting out of the windows and doors from the inside of the building.
Is that what helped you to determine that the fire was caused from the inside?
Correct.
Thank you. Going to State's Exhibit number 71. Where are we?
We're on the east side of the house, in the side yard.
And is this the side nearest towards the right of the front door?
Correct.
And
what I'm looking at here is just looking at any kind of smoke staining or patterns that would tell me if there's any fire that started on the exterior of the house here. In this case, again, these are ventilation patterns from smoke venting out from the interior of the structure. There's no fire on the outside.
so based on what you're saying as far as ventilation patterns, that means the fire was on the inside going out?
Correct.
Okay. And did you see anything to make you think you needed to investigate whether there was a cause of the fire on this side of the house?
No, based on what I'm seeing here, there's actually no exterior fire on this side of the house.
State's Exhibit number 72.
Standing on the front porch, looking into the front entryway.
And, well, one second. As part of your investigation, did you draw a diagram of the house?
I did.
And how was that diagram drawn?
The one that I have was produced on a computer.
How were the measurements taken?
They were hand taken by myself and Deputy Fire Marshal Backlund.
Are you trained in using this program to create these diagrams?
I know.
And did you include that as part of your investigation?
I did.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 172. Do you recognize that, sir?
I do.
And what is that?
That's a copy of the diagram that I originally made for my report.
And is this a true and accurate copy of your diagram?
It is.
State would offer State's Exhibit 172.
Exhibit 172.
I'm going to block that. So, if you could help us out at certain points and let us know where you're standing when this picture is being taken.
All right, so I'm standing on the front porch looking north. This is the front porch, front doorway, and I'm looking in the north direction into the entryway and kitchen area.
Okay. And is there anything significant to you from this?
Well, what I'm looking at is just the burn patterns that are within the house. And there's nothing specific about this other than that's part of my process of beginning my investigation into the interior.
And what do these burn patterns tell you?
They give you a direction of travel. They give you indications of items that have burned, how the fire's burned.
And can you show us what you mean by that?
Well, you can see the charring. This is the doorway entry into the kitchen. You can see charring to the wood here. You can see what these are called clean burn patterns, and these are produced from objects that are burning for a length of time. What that does is consumes the paint and the paper of the gypsum wallboard, and then what is known as calcination, or the drying of the gypsum board itself, it'll turn a whitish color.
And
the moisture is being extracted out of the drywall from the heat.
does this tell you directionality at all?
Well, not at this particular photograph.
Right. Good. And again, these rafters, none of them had fallen down during your investigation?
No.
Going to State's Exhibit 73, I believe?
73.
Correct.
So I've stepped inside the front entryway and I'm looking to my right into the, this is part of the living room. This is the original dining room of the structure.
And here on the map, showing State's Exhibit 172.
Approximately in this area, standing here, looking in this direction.
Great. And anything significant to you here as far as directionality or otherwise?
These pictures were kind of taken just to exhibit the amount of damage that was done after overhaul and prior to my excavation of the scene. It does show that a lot of the walls are heavily sooted and from fire damage and smoke and soot. It also shows the ceiling joists in here. Now these ceiling joists are not burned, and the reason for that is that the gypsum board that was on the ceiling held while it was in the fire. And during the course of the fire department doing their extinguishment of the fire, they pulled the gypsum board down. These joists down at this end tell me that there was a lot more heat at this end.
And what's the purpose of them pulling the gypsum board down?
Well, there's an attic space above. Once the front door was kicked in, and fire vented out from the interior, went up into the soffit and then up into the attic from there.
So the fact that we are not seeing ceiling and what we're seeing is exposed beams does not necessarily mean that the gypsum board fell during the fire. That was something that occurred by the firefighters' hands?
This section is occurred by the firefighters. There are some other photographs in here that where these are, where the gypsum board fell on its own during the course of the fire.
Going to State's Exhibit number 74. Is this the same couch from the last picture? You just, I think, turned to the right?
That's correct.
Okay. And what does this tell us?
This is just showing the furniture that was located inside the room, living room. This is a couch on the east wall, and below this debris appeared to be some kind of stereo equipment in this area down here. This is the frame for the front window living room area.
When you're seeing electronic equipment such as stereo equipment, are you looking to see if they could be the causes of the fire?
We are.
And did you notice anything that would indicate that any of this was the cause of fire?
I didn't find anything there that would suggest that the fire originated in that area.
State's Exhibit number 75.
I turned to my left and I'm standing in the living room looking to my left. This is the front entranceway again, and this is the west wall.
Thank you. Perfect. So this is where you took the original picture from. You were just facing towards us?
That's correct.
Okay. And are these the same fire patterns that you were previously testifying about?
Correct.
And anything strike you about this picture?
Well, in the totality of it, based on the knowledge that I have from looking the other direction, and there may be some pictures later on here that would show that, there is a movement pattern from the kitchen to the entryway here.
And how can you tell that?
Based on the burn patterns inside the kitchen, and then how the joists here were charred, and then the door frame in this area.
And again, charred, but none of them have fallen down?
Correct.
State's Exhibit number 76.
Standing in the entryway again, looking straight ahead into the kitchen area. These are the cabinets and the kitchen sink cabinets and dishwasher on this side with, it's hard to see in this photo, but there's a refrigerator here. This is a range on the east side of the kitchen, and this is the walkway in between them.
Fair to say that kitchen is a fairly common area for accidental fires to be caused.
It is.
And so what are the things that you're looking for when you go into a kitchen?
Typically in a kitchen, we're looking at the appliances, the lighting, and anything that's electrical in there.
And did the fire start in the kitchen, or did it just end up there?
Based on my examination of the kitchen, the fire did not originate in the kitchen.
And did you examine the things you're speaking of, such as the stove, the appliances?
I did.
And did you find any of them to be the cause of the fire?
I found that they were not the cause of the fire.
And we'll get to closer up pictures, but what are you looking for to make that determination?
Well, specifically on the oven or the range itself, we're looking for things in this case, this is an electric range where we have 4 electric burners on top, and then there's an oven here. The power cord, of course, is behind there. We're looking to see if anything's been left on the stove itself that would have been left burning and caused the fire. The dishwasher, we're looking to see if there's any fire coming out from within the dishwasher. Typically, most of the fires in the dishwasher are started internally and break out of the cabinets from that point. And then there's appliances later on in these photographs. I believe we'll have there's countertop appliances, toasters, microwaves, coffee makers, things like that.
And when I'm looking at this picture as somebody that doesn't do this for a living, I'm seeing stuff on top of the stove. How are you able to distinguish that from things that could have caused the fire?
Well, again, we're looking for burn patterns, and in this case, the items that you're seeing here, there's a, further down the picture, there's a close-up of this. This is mostly gypsum board that has fallen from the wall behind on top of the burners here, and then I excavate or remove that debris to determine if there's anything left on the burners. Also look at the control knobs for the burners to see if they're in the on position or not, if there's anything left. In this case, the control plastic knobs themselves were all melted, but they did leave the metal post, and there's ways of determining whether those posts are on or not.
And when we're looking at State's Exhibit number 76 with things on top of the stoves, you talked about going through, sifting through them. This picture obviously taken before you've done that?
That's correct. This is before the overall.
Go ahead.
Overall.
State's Exhibit number 77.
We're still in the kitchen, and I'm just showing the damage, the amount of damage to the ceiling area up here. This rectangular shaped item is a opening for a skylight.
And did you see anything that had fallen from the ceiling while you were in the kitchen?
No. The only thing that had dropped down actually were these are what we call can lights or ceiling lights. And these are conductors that are still holding them in place.
Okay. And anything about them lead you to believe that it could have been the cause of the fire?
No, visual inspection of the conductors to see if there's any arcing or anything of that damage. There's nothing there that would suggest that the fire started in the ceiling.
What is arcing?
Arcing is an electrical term of when you have an energized circuit that causes, where there's a fault, positive and a negative, simply put. And you have alternating current in household wiring. So the current is running in and out. You have a positive and a negative. If those two touch, or the insulation is removed from them or touch, it'll cause an electrical fault, which then causes what we call an arc. And what that does, it electrically it conducts electricity and at a high temperature and melts the conductors.
Did you see any indication that the conductors had been melted?
No.
State's Exhibit number 78.
This is still the kitchen floor, and that's located right here. And that is just outside of the north, what I call the north dining room. And what's specific about this, we had cleaned this area out while this is the support structure that we used. While that was being constructed, we overhauled this area and removed all the insulation and everything on the floor. What this shows here is a radial burn pattern on the floor. The floors are constructed of wood flooring, and it shows a directional. It's half moon shaped. Shows a directional pattern from moving from the dining room into the kitchen area.
So is this further confirming your hypothesis that the origin of the fire was in the dining room?
Correct.
Going to State's Exhibit number 79.
Now I'm facing west, but I'm looking into, there's a hallway. This is a refrigerator in the kitchen. It's a short hallway that leads to another hallway here. Laundry room and bathroom are located here. If you turn left, that would be the entrance, inside the entrance door to the garage. And if you turn to the right, that would lead to the main family room. So I'm looking this way into the hallway. Turn left. This is the entrance door into the garage. And then if you turn right, you're looking into the north family room.
I'm seeing a lot of wires here hanging down. Did you inspect those to make sure that they were not the cause of the fire?
I did.
And what kinds of things did you look for, and did you find any of those?
Again, I was looking for any type of electrical arcing or any indication that the fire would have originated within those branch circuits, and I found none.
And did you find anything unusual about the refrigerator that would indicate it could be the cause of the fire?
I did not.
It's State's Exhibit number 80.
This is just looking up at the ceiling towards that hallway. What's pertinent here is you can see the door frame of the entrance to the dining room. You can see the destruction or the heavy charring on the dining room side, and then it decreases in damage as you move towards the kitchen side, which is another indicator of the direction of travel of the fire.
Meaning that it's
Moving.
Go ahead.
It's moving from the dining room into the kitchen.
And these are the same wires as the last picture. Did you make sure to look at the can lights here?
I did.
And anything unusual?
I found nothing unusual in those.
State's Exhibit number 81.
I've just turned around and I'm looking back towards the kitchen again. Refrigerator, countertop, dishwasher, and the stove over here, or the range.
State's Exhibit number 82.
So this is just looking down at the floor of the kitchen. This debris here was removed from in front of the entrance to the dining room and placed there for the time being until we were able to excavate it again and clean the countertops and the stove and the floor.
And anything unusual about this?
What you can see here is that the doors to the refrigerator, you can see how the color, the discoloration to the metal doors. The gray color is more extreme heat, which would indicate that a lot of the fire was up above, and it decreased in color and damage as you move down to the floor. There really was no floor or fire down below this area. Most of the damage that you see here is from hot fire gases and the temperature of the fire that's moving through there.
State's Exhibit number 83. No, that might be 83.
83. So I'm standing in front of the entrance to the dining room again was where I was facing the kitchen. I'm now turned to my left. And I'm looking in towards the east into this area.
Towards the, I can't hear you, sir.
Looking towards the east into the dining room.
And some of the debris you were speaking of taking into the kitchen, is that located here?
Some of that is there. That's insulation from the ceiling up above.
And what does this picture tell you?
In this case, this charred wood here, this is a shelf. This is one side of a cabinet, and I'm calling it the west side. The west side of the cabinet is totally consumed, which leads me to believe another direction of travel. The fire venting out of the north dining room. It's looking around this. It's impinging on this side of the cabinet first, and then continuing on down to the dining room.
Is this confirming your theory that it was the north dining room was the origin of fire?
That's correct.
And did you find any accidental causes of the fire so far?
I have not, no.
It's exhibit number 84.
This is just the ceiling above that area.
And
What it's showing is the amount of heat that the ceiling dropped down early in the fire, or during the course of the fire. This wasn't pulled down by the fire department. The insulation that was in the ceiling is also, you can see, is it's white in color, and that's an indication of heat being applied to that insulation and turning that color. So there's just directionally shows the fire moving from here into the east dining room.
And again, none of these rafters have fallen down?
No, they're all in place.
State's exhibit number 84.
So I'm back in the hallway that leads to the garage and then into the northwest family room. And I'm looking north. This area.
And just have me make sure this is the right exhibit.
85.
Oh, 85. Thank you. Okay. And so what is this telling us?
This is again a photograph of prior to us removing the debris from the room. But I'm looking north. It is showing the amount of smoke layering that has entered this room with this line here. You can see it, we call it a line of demarcation, which is a layer of hot fire gases. As it moves down from the ceiling, it'll heat up and char and soot the walls here. So we can see what the smoke level was in this room. There's another picture, directional fire pattern on the north wall. You can see how it's moving in this direction. This is the entryway into the north dining room.
So is this...
Second entry.
Okay, so does this mean that the fire was again in the north dining room moving out?
That's correct.
And any accidental fire causes the fire located in this room so far?
Not that I can see.
This would be a good time to take a little break. Why don't we take about a 10-minute break, get stretched up, and get back out after this. If you put the cover over your notebooks, please. Take those back with them to the jury room. We'll get you back out here shortly.
All right.
All right. We'll be in recess.